Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora everybody, welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. And once again, this week you only have me. Hopefully you are not gutted. Tane is out doing something awesome. He is out playing a league game, which is pretty cool for him, as he just started that a few weeks ago, as you heard, and he's selected to get to this team, so which is awesome for him as a young person. So go Tane. And as always, we start with a bit of knowledge. And I guess in this last week, what have I learned in this last week? I think the main thing that I learned was that I think this is something that's just come up quite a bit, is just time and time to look after yourself. I'm just getting over the joys of long COVID, and I try to keep myself really busy, but I realize I've actually just got to stop and look after myself. And it's been really good because people have understood and been, hey, just take it easy. In the past, I would just soldier through and then go home and collapse, but actually that's not the way to go. So yeah, look after yourself out there. Your health is probably the most important thing in the whole wide world. Yeah. But that's my learning, just to take it easy when I need to take it easy. So as always, we like to invite some amazing people onto our podcast. And this person, I've been trying to get onto this podcast for a few months, and our diaries never line up. So to get her on today is actually a privilege for us both, although Tana's not here, which is why we had to do it. We're like, cool, even if Tana's not here, it's got to happen. I'd like to introduce and invite onto our podcast, Maarie. Welcome to our podcast, Maarie.
Kia ora.
Awesome. Maarie, before we start our conversation, do you want to tell our listeners out there just a bit about who you are at this moment in time? What are you doing at this moment in time in your life?
Okay, so in this moment in time, I'm currently on a gap year. So unlike most of my friends this year who went off to uni, I chose to take a gap year and work. I'm currently working as a Te Reo Māori teacher at Wellington Girls College for this year. But yeah.
Awesome. What a great place for us to start this whole conversation. So the first thing you said there, which I think is really interesting, is I met you 2 years ago, I think 2 years ago.
Yes.
I met you 2 years ago, and when I met you, university was on the horizons for you as a real option when you were finishing up school. Why did you decide to change your mind? What is the point when you actually, maybe university is not the right time for me and I'm going to take a bit of a break? Was there a reason, or was there something that just triggered the moment?
I think for me, because I was really set on university even last year, I was applying to all these different unis. I really wanted to get a good scholarship so I could leave home. I remember in year 13, I think most year 13s are like this, but the whole time, for that whole year, you kind of lose motivation at school because you're so set on going to uni. And like me and my friends, most of the time we would be talking about university, and that was a goal that even this time last year that I wanted to pursue. I really wanted to go to university, but then decided, I think at the last minute, that I actually wanted to take a gap year. And that was because I talked to my sister, and my older sister was telling me about her journey of university. And when I was talking to her, she said that she regrets not taking a gap year. And a gap year was it wasn't something that I was sure about, but I kind of had it in the back of my mind, and I'd thought about it. And then when she told me that, I was like, if I don't take this gap year, I might never ever get the opportunity to experience what life is like outside of uni. So I think that was the main reason as to why I really wanted to take a gap year this year. But yeah.
It's pretty crazy how one conversation can change things for anybody, right?
Yeah.
You in this conversation with your sister, and you're like, hey, let me just reflect. And when you made the decision, now, as you said before, your friends, your conversation all about going to university, and when you're like, hey guys, I'm not going to university anymore, what is that like for you and your peer group? Was it a okay, cool, or was it a break up from your peers?
I think because my friends, when they were talking to me, just based off of how things were towards the end of the year, I think they expected me to go to uni because I guess financially, looking at scholarships and stuff, they were like, "You're in a really good position, like I'm quite surprised that you've taken a gap year." And I think of all of like everyone in my friend group, I think they weren't expecting me to take a gap year. But when I did tell them that, they were really supportive of it because they're amazing. So yeah.
Which is pretty cool. And for our listeners out there, Maarie is pretty academically amazing. So she had lots of scholarships everywhere. So that's some context for you as well. It's not that how you weren't yet ready for university. You had the ability, you had the scholarships. You just decided, hey, this is what you were going to do. Now the next what's awesome for me is most people on a gap year, most young people on a gap year decide to travel or decide
Yeah.
to decide to have a good time with the gap year or maybe work to save some money. But obviously
Yeah.
we can't really travel because the COVID world is still a bit weird. So that would have just been a bit interesting for you. But on your gap year, instead of going out and enjoying yourself, what did you do? You went back to school as a teacher. Isn't that strange? You went back to school that you actually left. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that then. So how did that journey happen? So you decided to take a gap year.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
Well, I think because I decided on my gap year in around, I think, November, and I managed to get my scholarship deferred in January, which was kind of late. But I remember mentioning to my deputy principal that I was taking a gap year at the leavers function. And I don't know what sort of conversation came about, but basically, I think at the end of the year, one of the Te Reo Māori teachers who was going to take the year nines ended up having to leave because she got just a better opportunity job wise for her because it was close to home and she had a family and stuff. And so they were short of a Te Reo Māori teacher. And basically, my principal, so my mum, she was on the board at Wellington Girls College when she was there. My principal called my mum because she knew that I was on a gap year and basically asked my mum if I wanted a job. And then she called me, had to talk to me about it. And I was really unsure at first. And even my friends said to me, they were like, why would you want to go back straight after you just left? And yeah, I think that definitely in my head, I was like, why would I want to go back after I've said goodbye and left and stuff? But I think, well, in the end, obviously, I decided to take the job. But I think the reason that I did it was, well, obviously, super important to have a job and to earn money over your gap year. But also, I think there's always been like a part of me that's always wanted to help people and having that opportunity through teaching and being able to teach and inspire young kids was something that I really wanted to do. But yeah, just it is quite shocking that I've gone back to my old high school after I've just left. But yeah, definitely a unique position to be in, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't think there's many people out there that have been like, I've left school, going on gap year, and we're going back to my same school that I left. I think that's a pretty unique scenario.
Yeah.
And I just want to try and take you back to your first going back as a staff member. What was that like? So you said bye to your teachers, and then you're like, hey, I'm not one of you. What is that
Yeah.
like?
I think it was the weirdest experience of my life, honestly, going from a student to like being a staff member. Because I think even when I started my job, and a lot of the times now, I still feel like a student, which is terrible. And
Yeah.
like most of my really close friends that I made in those younger year groups, they're still at high school. And so it's really tricky at times to dissociate myself from being a student and a staff member. But the staff at WC have been incredible with me. Made a few mistakes along the way, I think all teachers do, but they've been wonderful and they've really supported me through everything. But yeah, it definitely is weird, especially knowing that a lot of them taught me and now they're teaching the kids that I teach, and it's crazy. But
Yes,
yeah.
it's pretty crazy. And teaching. So when I met you, teaching was not on the horizon for you.
No.
So let's talk about that there. So let's go back to year 13, Mārie, going to university. What was she going to do at university? if she was going to go to
Um,
university?
well, she was definitely either going to pursue film. I think film was the main thing,
Yeah.
or she was going to go on to pursue dance. But dance is one of those careers that I think it's one of the trickiest industries to get into. So you've got to be not only an incredibly amazing dancer, but also very passionate about it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So film, dance, teaching.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
How did that sit for you? I mean, obviously you're enjoying it because you're doing it, but how was that in your mind, your mind side? Because I know you said you want to help people, but did it take some time for you to actually go, actually, this is something different, and hey, let's just give it a go?
Yeah, I think that was how I felt about it when I first started, because like even teaching, I don't think it was ever on the cards for me until the beginning of this year. And now that I've started teaching, like even, oh, it was so funny actually. I feel like my siblings predicted that I was going to become a teacher because during Christmas, we were all having a conversation and my siblings had all come back home, well, come back to Wellington and stayed at home for a week. And I was talking with my siblings, and my sister goes, my other sister, she goes, who do you think out of all of us is most likely to become a teacher? And then all of them looked at me and said, Maarie, it's definitely you. And I never thought, I was like, me, a teacher? I never thought about it. And then a month later, I ended up taking up a job as a teacher. So I guess they predicted my future. But yeah, I think teaching, because yeah, like I said before, obviously I wanted to help people, um, but also like I feel like it's so important not only to educate kids but also to inspire them. I think because one thing that I've learned as a teacher is one of the most important things about teaching is, well, obviously making sure that your students are learning their content, but also I think building relationships with them and making sure that they feel safe and comfortable in your classroom. And I think that's something that I always aim to do in my classrooms is to make sure that everyone in my class, no matter who they are, where they come from, who they sit with in class, that they feel comfortable enough to not only come up to me as a teacher, but to connect with their peers as well. But yeah, I think with teaching, you definitely, when you're a student, you're so, I guess not oblivious, but you're so unaware. Like even if you show your teachers a lot of respect, like you're so unaware of how much time they put into things. Like when I became a teacher like this year, I was like, oh my gosh, like teachers do so much that students don't know about. And so I really commend them for what they do, and especially those teachers who've been around for ages. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy. I think it's a profession that is people don't understand the value of the profession and the stuff that teachers do.
Yeah.
It's what you see is the classroom, but the stuff that goes on behind closed doors and in the weekends and
Yeah.
sporting events and all that fun stuff there. Plus, you have to run a family. It's pretty, it's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
I take my hat off to any teachers out there. They're pretty amazing. Um, and so teaching, great. This is fantastic. But Te Māori, let's talk about that there. So is that a big part of your life? I mean, you're a young person, and New Zealand is going through this crazy, crazy crux at the moment. We'll come up with that in a second. So, and obviously, Te Māori is now becoming more and more acceptable because it is one of our national languages here. So,
Yeah.
how did it feel for you to actually go? Actually, this is really cool to be teaching something that is um, actually now becoming mainstream, which is the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, obviously, for me, I've been born and bred in Te Māori. I think one thing that I'm grateful for, which I guess I took for granted when I was younger, was the fact that my parents brought me up speaking Māori. It was the first language I learned. They made sure, like, even as a kid, that I always went home. So my parents, my mum's from Kaitahu, my mum's from Ngāti Porou, so my dad's from the east coast of the North Island, and my mum is from the west coast of the South Island. And even though those are on two opposite ends, they always made sure that we went home so that we knew where we were from, and also obviously knew a lot about our own native language, which is Te Reo. And I think now that I'm older, because I guess when I was younger, particularly when I was at Māori schools and like the bilingual unit at my primary school, I took Te Reo for granted because all the kids around me, they could speak Te Reo. And so I guess I was like, oh, why do we have to learn Te Reo? Why is it that I always have to speak Te Reo Māori in the classroom? I'm around Māori kids all the time. These kids can all speak Māori. So, like it's not a big deal to me if I'm not speaking it all the time. But then when I went to Wellington Girls College in my year 9, I think there was only at the time about 5 of us girls who could speak Te Reo Māori out of about 1,500. And that was when it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, not that many kids are actually fluent in Te Reo Māori. And a lot of them, like all my friends that are fluent in Te Reo Māori, because their parents couldn't speak Te Reo Māori like mine can, their parents never took them home or got them to learn more about their lineage or where they came from. And so a lot of them not only have a lot of struggles around language, but also around where they're actually from and like where their family's from and who their cousins are and their close whānau are. And so when I got to WGC, I think that was when I really realized, I was like, oh my gosh, Te Reo Māori is so important. And even if I'm not teaching it, because at the time, obviously, I was a student, I think it's so important for me to use it and to help other people who want to use it. And now that I'm a teacher, obviously, I've got that platform to inspire kids to use Te Reo Māori. And I think it is especially important for year 9s, because I think when you're year 9, I guess you don't know as much about the world as you do when you get older. And so I think a lot of year 9s, and I totally get this, particularly with a new language, may not be as open to learning Te Reo Māori. And so what I try to do as a teacher is obviously teach them, because it's super important that they have that knowledge of Te Reo Māori and Te Ao Māori, but also kind of make the class enjoyable for them so that they want to learn Te Reo Māori. Yeah. And so I think it's super important, even if they only take a year of it or half a year of it, for them to have some base knowledge, because like you said, there's been a great influx of Te Reo Māori being used across everywhere. You hear it everywhere now. You see it on the news, you hear it on the radio, and those were things that even 5 years ago we didn't have. And so it's super important now more than ever for kids to not just learn Te Reo Māori, but also have a base knowledge of it so that they can carry that on into the future. But yeah.
That's awesome. And I love, you've touched on some amazing things there about, the importance of picking up in year 9, because at year 9, you're not jaded to the world. As you get older, the world influences you a lot more. People's perspectives and opinions start to affect the way you do something, whether it's in your language and your skill. You're like, oh, I'm less receptive. But as a year 9, like when you were in WGC year 9, you're like, oh, what is going on? You just learn, you just soak it up. Even though you might have some resistance, the fact that you're still year 9, you go, right, cool, soak it up. I want you to just elaborate on one thing for our listeners out there that are not that don't really understand the Māori world, about when you said going back home. So it doesn't mean going back home to your house. Do you want to explain what going home in Te Ao Māori actually means?
So in Te Ao Māori, when a lot of kids, well, Māori kids, particularly those who have been brought up at places like Kura Kaupapa or, schools that have a special Te Reo Māori unit, a lot of them, particularly those who know about their whakapapa, their ancestry, a lot of them refer to going home as actually going back to where their iwi is, or where their close hapu is. So, for example, like for me, obviously going home can mean coming home as in, coming back to my house. But what the true definition is for going home, well, to me, is actually going back up to where my parents are from and learning about not only, my close family and my heritage, but also what my tipuna, my ancestors, did prior to my dad being born in that area. And so I think going home in Te Ao Māori actually means being at a place where your ancestors once were and where your parents have descended from, and kind of finding out more about that place and about the local people there that are obviously your whanaunga, your cousins. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, because home means so many different things to different people and in different cultures. And in the in Māoridom, that's important. You go back to your roots, essentially, where you actually come from. I think a lot of indigenous cultures have that their roots. I mean, I grew up in Zimbabwe in Africa, and it's really interesting for me because where is my home? Is my home New Zealand? Is my home Zimbabwe? Or is because I've got Indian ethnicity? Is that where my roots are from? Because that's where my great grandparents are. So it's really interesting for me because I'm so divided there. I don't know. New Zealand is a place where I live at the moment, but it's not my home. I don't resonate with the ground and the earth. But when I go to Africa, I resonate with the ground and the earth. And when I visit India, I'm like, oh, I resonate with the culture. But it's really, really interesting. Like, it's a whole different world, and I think it's the same in a lot of indigenous cultures. So thank you for explaining that. The other thing that I want to touch on is you are now. The reason I want to bring this up is it's going to be controversial, but we both mentioned this, that Te Reo Māori is now becoming more and more prevalent, as it should in mainstream New Zealand. However, as we know, there's still a stronghold of people, not young people out there, that are just against it. And we can see that what happened this last week here, where Whittaker's Chocolate just changed the name of one of the chocolates to be Te Reo, and you had this crazy backlash. For someone like yourself, who is in a school that is is diverse and multicultural, multilingual, the whole lot, how does it sit like for you seeing this happening? Where you have a company just trying to do what's okay, and the world goes nuts around that.
Yeah, I think it upsets me a lot. I mean, I know I shouldn't take things like that too personally, but I guess when you see people basically getting upset over something that is part of the indigenous culture of Aotearoa, and that is also happens to be your culture, I think it is really upsetting for me, and it does suck that it's gotten a lot of backlash. And like from my perspective, I guess, hearing Te Reo Māori and seeing it become more prevalent, you think the world is moving forward, but then sometimes there are just things like that, like the whole incident with Whittaker's changing their one of their blocks into Te Reo Māori, which I'm pretty sure is the creamy milk block, which is my absolute favourite. I think it is, I guess, quite upsetting and disappointing, because it shows that there are still areas in which Aotearoa or New Zealand doesn't want to change their perspective on Te Reo Māori. So yeah, I know that's a strong opinion to hold, but that's just how I feel about it.
Hi, opinions are allowed. You're allowed to have opinions, and that's all. That's all good. Opinions are not facts; they're just opinions. So that's awesome. And I mean, it's. I mean, someone who's not a Te Reo Māori speaker, or not even Māori at all, when I saw that, I was blown away, because to me, it's not just about Te Reo Māori. It's about just racism, full stop. It's just about not accepting anyone that doesn't conform to European culture, I guess. And I never use the word European culture very loosely, because Europe has lots of culture. If you go to Central Europe, they're very culturally deep. But it's this world where this is very controversial, where if you're not the certain brand, then it's not okay.
Yeah.
And so I start thinking about, okay, cool. So if we're not accepting indigenous culture, what happens when we have our refugees who come to this country here? We have such a diverse country in New Zealand. We're very lucky. What happens if you can't accept your own indigenous culture? What happens to the people that are coming in? And that's where the fear come for me. It's like, people out there are saying, yeah, we accept this on the superficial level, but inside we have no idea what their internal thoughts are.
Yeah.
And that's also scary for me. And I think it's quite sad, actually.
Yeah.
That's sad. Yeah, and I guess that's your world, and you're living that, and now you go, oh, yeah, the world is going forward, but actually, well, not actually so much.
Yeah.
Which is why I guess the work that you're doing with your year nines is really important. Not just about the language. I don't think it's more than language. It's about the awareness that there's actually more out there.
Yeah. And I think especially for them, just learning about it and, even having a bit of it surrounding them, while they're still young is super important. So, yeah.
Yeah. Talk about importance. We're going to digress quite randomly now. We're going to digress to importance. Let's talk about dance in your life. We know
Oh,
that. Let's talk
dance.
about dance. Dance makes a big part of your life.
Yes, it does indeed.
Yeah. You want to tell the listeners how long you've been dancing for and what kind of dance you do?
Okay, so I've been dancing for just under 8 years now, and I used to do ballet. So I started in ballet at the age of 10. I did that for 3 years, and I also did jazz for a year and a half. I think the hardest thing about ballet is if you want to pursue it like as a career, you have to start very young because you learn all of those techniques in ballet, especially the super important ones, your base techniques, when you're like maybe 3 or 4. And B, I think ballet for me personally, it just wasn't for me. I think the culture around it can sometimes get a little bit cruel, and it's not so much, the students, but just the pressure to
Yep.
sort of fit into a certain mold with ballet. And so after that, I went through the complete opposite route. I started hip hop, which is my favorite style of dance. And I also do contemporary, which I really love. But yeah, hip hop especially, um, you know, it's totally different to ballet. When I first started it, I was easily the stiffest hip hop dancer you would have seen, but I've grown to love it. And I think, yeah, it's really awesome form of dance. So, yeah.
It's very cool. And it's not just about you taking part. I know you're very supportive of anyone that gets involved in this. And do you want to talk about, your involvement in it? It's just you do lots of cool things.
Well, my involvement with dance. So I dance almost every single day. I've had to actually give up a few dance classes. So today, usually I'd have crew trainings on a Saturday, which is why it is quite tricky for us to find time to chat about super important things. But usually I'd have crew trainings on today, and crew trainings, obviously, that's when you start getting into like competitive dancing. And so, yeah, I think now that I've dropped doing that because of everything that's going on in my life in terms of just being really busy, yeah, it's been a little bit difficult because it wasn't my plan to drop it. But I think also it's important for me to give, like you said at the very beginning of this podcast, to give yourself a break. But yeah, over the course of, I think particularly these last 2 years, I've been super involved with my dancing. My dance crew, shout out to the Capital. They're really awesome. All of the kids there, they've been super supportive and super good to me. We've been to a few competitions together, me with the same dancers, sometimes different names for our crews, but particularly in these last few years, been super involved with the competitive side of dancing. Our crew last year for the mega crew section, we qualified for Worlds, but we only made the semi-finals,
Oh, wow.
and that's fine, but
pretty
that's,
cool. Yeah.
still cool. We didn't actually, because obviously COVID was terrible, we didn't actually get to perform. So our national set, which we came third for, ended up being live streamed, but as part of the comp. But yeah, there's been few things with dance that I've been involved in. Show Quest, I really enjoyed doing Show Quest in both 2019 and 2021, and there's been a few awards that I've been lucky enough to get for dance. So yeah.
What are those awards? Don't be humble.
Oh gosh, I always feel so awkward talking about my awards. But when I first started at the company, which is where I dance now, I won a few awards and managed to secure a scholarship for 2019 from those awards. And then last year, I managed to win a class award for Varsity Academy, which I was really shocked about because if I'm being honest, I'm definitely not one of the best dancers in varsity, so I was very shocked by that, but obviously very grateful for it too. So
Well,
yeah.
somebody that thinks you are, so that's, somebody else thinks that, we always are worst critics. So well done. Awesome. So that's a big part of your life, So we have Te Māori, which is one part of your life. You have the dance, which is the other part of your life. What else is important to you in your world?
Oh, well, yeah, as you said, Te Māori and dance, obviously. I think family
Yep.
is a very, very important part of my life. I think with most people that are Māori, if you actually ask them what one of the most important parts of their lives are, they will say whānau.
Yep.
I think friends, relationships are super important to me. My aim always with my friendships is to make sure that the person that I'm friends with feels happy when they're with me and is, obviously, yeah, happy to have my presence around them. I guess these are like really small things, but going for walks, exercising, super important part of my life. I think it's
Yep.
so important to, particularly if you are a person who gets stressed quite easily, like I do, it's super important to have, times where you can do something such as exercising. Well, for me, it's exercising, it's different for all people. Just time to chill out so that you are able to come back and obviously feel more relaxed about things. And yeah, I guess, where am I going with this? Feel more relaxed about things and, be ready and focused to do whatever you're putting your mind to.
Yeah,
So,
but also it's also just okay just to do nothing, just for the sake
yeah,
of it. I just want to go and relax because why not?
yeah,
Why not? Exactly. Why not? It becomes a problem when you relax too much. Oh, I'm just relaxing. Why
yeah.
not? Why? Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Sometimes I think I relax too much in the holidays and then I try cram all my work in last minute. Don't do that. Don't do that. Shouldn't recommend
Welcome to teacher life, right?
that.
Talking about teacher life, how did you feel teaching in the classroom? I mean, I'm guessing you didn't have any experience teaching before, so what is that like? I mean, getting your plans already. How did you do all that? And did someone train you? Did someone help you? Or what is the process?
Um, I think teaching, because obviously, you go to teachers' college and
Yeah.
you do placements and stuff. I kind of just threw myself into it. When I first started, I had actually for the first 6 weeks while I was waiting. So, teachers who only teach for a limited amount of time, they're on these things that you call LATs, and LATs are a limited authority to teach. So, while I was waiting for that to come through, I had a really lovely reliever who helped me out for those first 6 weeks of my teaching, just, sort of calm the classroom down because obviously I'm not an experienced teacher, but I think I sort of threw myself into it. I was incredibly, incredibly anxious for that whole month and a half when I first started teaching. I remember I'd write everything out, like what I was going to do in the lesson. I wanted it to be structured like this, blah, 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 blah. I'd write everything down and then I'd have a bit of a stress release moment before I went into class, and then I'd walk in, and even to this day, I still get really nervous, particularly like presenting to the board. But I guess I just walk in and sort of throw myself into it. And I think the more you do it and the closer you get with your students in terms of building relationships, the more comfortable you feel in a classroom. Like, I think students probably don't know this at all, but building a relationship with a teacher actually helps them feel a lot more comforted in class because you've got that sense of, your students are not only interested in what you have to teach them, but they're interested in who you are as a person, and therefore they want to learn off of you. But yeah, I think with classes and stuff, I sort of threw myself into it. I always somehow, I think it's because sometimes with my teaching, I can be a little too relaxed. I think sometimes I always end up getting really loud classes, which I enjoy, but I know some teachers would really struggle with.
And I guess, I mean, there's no right or wrong way to teach, right? There's the,
Yeah.
there might be a wrong way to teach, but there's no set way to do certain things. You know, if you're like I said, if you're connecting and the content is flowing, the relationship is going through, that's a win right there. You know.
Yeah.
And here's a secret for you. You know, I've been presenting. I present every single day, every single day, and I still get nervous. I still go. I still have to go when I walk into a classroom. It's like cool because it's a brand new classroom. It's a brand new group of people. You have no idea how they're going to judge you, and you just go right cool. You just got to do the same thing. Yeah, just take a deep breath in, go, and then like you, I like to connect. My first thing is to connect. I'm not here to just present material because
Yeah.
anyone can present material. Anyone.
Yeah.
You just can everyone can do it. You know, even if you might be scared to speak, but anyone can do it. But it's not about the material; it's about the connection. And like you said, right, which is what I really, really appreciate is teaching is not just about the content; it's about the connection. And every single person that's listening to this podcast here will remember a teacher from this school. Everybody, either for a good reason or a bad reason. You know, you always remember your favorite teacher or your worst teacher. Everybody.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. This doesn't matter how old you are, whether you are 18 years old or whether you're 65 years old, you will always remember one of these teachers as a lecturer or a teacher. And it's because either they created a connection or they didn't create a connection for you.
Yeah.
So I really like the fact that you mentioned that because I think it's the key to any teaching, not just in the classroom, but any teaching. And especially now in the world of online teaching, I don't know, did you have to do any online teaching this year, or were you
Yes. I
okay?
think
And how was
I've
that for you?
honest. Uh, I think a teacher's worst nightmare is having to do everything online because, in general, your job is to interact with your students and to teach them content. And like, at Wellington Girls College, so at the beginning of the year, lots of kids were getting sick with COVID because there was a huge COVID wave. I ended up getting COVID too, 6 days before my 18th, which was not fun. And there was lots of COVID floating around, so we had lots of kids, working from home. We had days during obviously the protest. Because we were located so closely to Parliament, we basically had, I think it was 2 weeks where we worked from home, and I did Google Meets with my year nines, and it's just so tricky to connect with them. And even now, like, they have working from home days once a week. um, the hardest thing about it is obviously you don't get to connect with them and you miss out on a lesson with them. But also the hardest thing about it is, I think, and I know this from past lockdowns as well, it's really tricky to motivate yourself when you're working from home. And I think a lot of students, the progress, depending on how motivated they are to work from home, and it is really, really tricky to work from home. So I commend all students who are currently doing it. I think it's just the motivation levels with different students. Some students will have completed their work and gotten everything done and would have like done all of the content that you've completed, and then other students, because it is a hard thing working from home, really struggle with working from home. And so when they get back into the classroom, you see that everyone's varied in terms of their progress with your subject, and in my case with Te Reo Māori. So some kids will be doing really well in class and will be completing everything, and then other kids, they could still be doing really well, they just struggle with working from home. And I really think working from home has also not only stunted a lot of the learning for the students, but also made it more difficult, I guess, for them to create connections, not only with their teachers, but also with their peers. And so, yeah, it is a difficult thing working from home.
Yeah, I reckon there'll be some studies in the future that'll show the impact of working from home and
Yeah.
not just and studying from home. But I guess it's too early in the piece to see what's going to happen. But I guess as both of us as educators, we can really see the patterns that are coming out. But we're not scientists, so we're just going to say these are opinions.
Yeah.
This is what we see and we observe as we do our teaching. Here's a random question. So here you are teaching. Your peers are all gone to university. Do you ever have FOMO and wish, oh, I should have gone? Not even university, I should have done something different.
I think I'll be honest, I secretly, actually it's not really a secret because everyone will know, I was really upset about the fact that I didn't wasn't going to get an O week.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the social things, I do get big FOMO over that, particularly like, all my friends, because they're such amazing people, they've gone on to make connections with other people. I guess seeing that and seeing how much they're enjoying making those connections makes me a little sad because I guess like because all my friends, most of them have left. There are still some in Welly, but they're always super busy either with work or with uni. Um,
Well, you're busy as well. Yes,
yes,
yeah.
that's true.
Let's add that as well. Yeah.
Um, I think it is, you do get FOMO, particularly with that social aspect, because, um, most of the people that I spend, well, actually, all the people that I spend my time with, they're kids that are either, well, the closest thing you get is year 13s, either way older than me or a lot younger than me. And so it's hard finding friends that are around the same age as you when you are a teacher that is 18 in a weird spot and your friends have all gone off to uni. But yeah, I think the most FOMO I get is definitely from those social aspects and seeing people post about their uni balls. I'm like, oh damn it, I could have done that this year. But I think when my friends are stressing about their assignments, that's when I don't get FOMO. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just a bit of a balance, eh? It's
yeah,
just life, it's life when you go, hey, this is it, but you're doing your thing at the moment, and those opportunities will come up later on. And I love how you mentioned that it's really hard for you being an 18-year-old in a school teaching, and the boundary between, because some year 13s 18 years old as well, right? They're the same age as
yeah,
you, and you're like, this is really, really weird. So that professional personal boundary is a tough one for you to navigate. So
yeah,
I don't envy you at the moment.
yeah,
Um, so, I mean, we've gone through some pretty awesome topics here, but the one thing I want to talk about, because I know that you have some stuff that you're really passionate about in terms of activism, in terms of, hey, this is the right way to live the world, or people. What is one of those things that is really, really, really passionate to you, that when you see this happening out there, you'll put a stand for it? Some people have climate change, some people have racism, some people have women empowerment. What's your thing?
yeah. Oh, I think.
It could be all of them, right?
Yeah, if I'm honest, it actually is all of them. And I think that's just partially how I've been raised. Like, ever since I was a kid, my parents always raised me. I guess I didn't know at the time, but they raised me to be open to all kinds of people. So people of different races, sexualities, genders, everything. They taught me how to be accepting of all kinds of people and without sort of making it political. I sort of grew up having that thing where I take people as they are. I never take them on a basis of how they look or what their gender may be, sexuality, etc. And so when I grew up, it wasn't actually till year 9, you go to high school, where I started getting educated on these issues. And I guess from that, that's where I became more passionate about a lot of the issues, particularly concerning Te Ao Māori, Te Reo Māori. Feminism is actually a huge one for me, particularly like intersectional feminism. I think it's so important, and fighting for equality for all, people's rights, those who are female and identify as female. I think those are super important, and obviously that feeds into my thing about Te Ao Māori also being so important, and being something where all people of this, well, country should know about and should be able to have some knowledge of. But yeah, I think there's a range of them. Issues around sexuality and racism as well are super important to me too. So yeah, I think the whole box, and particularly as I've gotten older and been more educated on it, yeah, I've really opened up my eyes to those issues and wanted to make a stand for them. So yeah.
Yeah, because you're not afraid to say what you feel, which is really cool. Because I think a lot of people, they have these passions, but they close the door they'll talk about it in their private life, but they'll never do anything about it. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday as I was flying down, and I just remember someone on the podcast basically said, "Hey, everyone has his opinions, but they don't do anything about it. Like there's nothing. They just, they say all these things here, but then they go, oh, I'm going to vote whatever way they want to vote, even though whatever they're voting doesn't sit with what they said."
Yeah.
So it's this mismatch here, and unfortunately, humans, we work in tribes. We want to be in tribes. We want to be included.
Yeah.
And so some people, in fact, I mean, I would be the same as well. There'll be some scenarios where I just don't say something, but I think the older you get, the more you realize actually, hey, wait a minute, this is not okay, and it's not okay. And if I don't say anything about it, then it's just going to keep happening. So yeah, so it's really awesome that you take a stand, and you are. And the thing is, I mean, when people say, "Oh, you're taking a stand," it's not super extreme. It's just saying, "Hey, this is not okay," and that's taking a stand. It's not going out there with picket fences and It's just like, this is not okay, and that's a stand right there. And I think people need to realize that it's not just about being out there loud and proud. Doing the smallest things make a change.
And even like making a change in the classroom, like I always in like my Te Reo Māori classrooms, before I start with a new class, I always get them to write up tikanga, and obviously I implement all of their tikanga, but I always try to implement tikanga like things such as racism, homophobia, sexism, any shaming or bullying, any shaming of any sort, not tolerated in my classroom. And as a teacher, I try to remain as tolerant as I can, but once I see things like that arising amongst the students, then that's when I'll start calling it out.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's really, really quite good. Yeah, it's interesting world, hey.
Yeah,
it's an interesting world, which is really cool. But awesome work in that space there. What does your whānau think of you doing this?
Oh, my whānau. I think, well, they were actually the ones who, particularly my dad, they encouraged me to take the job. My mum, I think my mum's she's one of the most, well, both my parents, the most amazing people on earth, in my opinion. I think for them, they were a bit shocked at first, particularly my mum. My mum was like, "Oh, I'm surprised that they asked you," and not because like for any bad reason or anything, but just because you don't usually ask an 18-year-old
Yeah,
or
totally.
what.
Yeah, you definitely don't. I mean, that to me, that's still quite a surprise where a principal asks a 17-year-old to come and teach. I mean, that's just blown my mind. That's just blown my mind.
Yeah, no, I was, I think my parents were very surprised, but then my dad, he was the one who told me. He just said to me, he goes, "I really think you should take the job, and I know that you don't want to go back to school, and I know that it's not something you would have ever expected for your gap year, because obviously I was looking at other jobs too at the time, but I think you should take it." And I am glad that I took it. For the most part, I don't have any regrets of taking it. But yeah, I think my whānau, they were really supportive of it. They're just really shocked by it. I think, if you asked me how they would have thought about this being my job at the end of last year, they would have probably never predicted it.
When you told me, I was shocked. I was like, "What? Really?" I was like, "Really?" I was like, "What?" I know you're in a gap year, but okay, cool. Maybe you made a mistake. I don't know what's going on here. But I'm sure, looking back in a year's time, the learnings you would have gotten this year, no textbook would have ever taught you the stuff that you've learned in this year with how to deal with humans, because humans are complex creatures.
Yes, they are, and they change every single day. You're never going to get the same vibe with them.
That's right. Exactly. So, like I think, like your dad said, this is a great opportunity for you for so many reasons, but also conversely, it's a great opportunity for the school to have someone who can teach te reo to these young people. Yes, so everybody's winning in this situation.
Yeah.
It's just the university losing out. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I'm sorry.
Just kidding, just kidding. Don't be sorry. Never be sorry. Never be sorry. We've almost been talking for almost an hour, what, 50 minutes so far, and we're gonna try to wrap it up. And we can keep talking forever. I mean, we can keep talking, keep talking. But I'm gonna ask you a question now, which I think and we think is the hardest question we ask our guests on this podcast. Maarie, our podcast is called Bastards of Knowledge. With our guests, everyone comes with so much wisdom. If I was going to ask you for one piece of wisdom to share to our listeners from your experiences, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that is an incredibly tricky question to ask. I think obviously there are many issues covered, many cool things covered that we've talked about in this podcast. I think my biggest piece of advice at this point in time, oh my gosh, to think about this one.
You think away, it's all good.
I think, well, this, I guess, in some ways is totally off topic to everything that I've covered. I think my biggest piece of advice, and I guess this kind of relates to the whole situation around Whitaker's naming one of their blocks, Māori, and also around just how I feel about activism. But I think my biggest piece of advice, and this just comes from me as a person as well, is to always remain kind to people, no matter what. I think there are times where our values will constantly be challenged. As a teacher, your values definitely get challenged on a daily basis, and that's not kids ever being cruel. It's just, it is what it is in a classroom. But I think always remaining kind through everything and treating others with kindness, even if you don't necessarily agree with what they have to say, is super important. And I think when issues like this arise, the most important thing to do is to always remain kind and also to remain true to yourself. I think, particularly with big issues that happen in our world, you would have seen it with the protest earlier on this year. Our values are always challenged, and it is really hard in those moments, particularly when your opinions clash with others. It's really hard to remain kind and to still treat people with that same respect that you once would have had for them prior to your knowledge of, prior to your knowledge of, I guess, their views of the world. And so I think my biggest thing would be kind, be respectful, accept people for who they are, and always try to find the good in people. Because even, and I see it with my students too, even with people that are really tricky and really hard, there's always something good that they have to offer to this world. And so take time out of your day to be kind to them, and to also listen to what they have to say, because you never know, through everything that they've said, there's always going to be something that you've learned. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an amazing learning. I'm going to summarize that because there's a lot in there. I'll just say, hey, which is great. Be kind. It costs nothing to be kind at all, and it doesn't like I think we said this before. Opinions are not facts, and I think the world has not got to a stage where if someone's opinion is seen as a fact, and then we just get nasty and we just go, actually, wait a minute, hey, that's their map of the world. That's cool. I don't agree with it, but I don't have to be nasty. And I'm going to go back to the Whitaker's example because that's topical at the moment. Both sides are being pretty nasty to each other. I'm not saying which side is a right or a wrong side, but they're both being equally as nasty for some things that are being said. So you go, actually, wait a minute, is this actually helping? If someone just kind of goes, cool, that person doesn't agree, okay, whatever, that's cool. I'm just going to enjoy my chocolates, and I'm going to enjoy the fact that it's Te Reo Māori. Cool, happy days. Versus, slandering people and saying, oh, whatever people say to each other. But it's like you said, be kind, be respectful, and everybody has got a story, and everybody's got a journey, and everybody's inherently good. I think everybody is inherently good.
Everyone's got goodness in them.
That's right.
I think with people, you've always got to find which part of them is good, I guess.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, which part is good. Yeah, awesome. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up, Maria?
Hmm. Um, I guess I just want to say thank you to you for having me on this podcast. Obviously, I've listened to it and I've been a big supporter of it for a long time. So I feel very blessed and very privileged to be a part of it. So thank you.
No, thank you, thank you. I think it's a privilege for me to have you on here. And I think when I told Tane I was going to have you, I was so gutted. But I was like, hey, this is the only time. But that's all good. To our listeners out there, I'm sure you can see why Maarie is an amazing human being. You can see the radiance, the glows, some of the kindness that glows. If you're watching it, if you're hearing it, you can hear the kindness in her voice. Wait a minute. Before we end up, what's the plan next? What's is teaching the jam for you now? Now that you're like, oh, this is it, or what are we going to do next?
Well, next, I think I've definitely.
Sorry, before you answer that, I just want to remind you that all your plans so far have changed. So what is your plan today? What is your plan today?
They always change. So today's plan.
Yeah, today's plan.
Today's plan. Okay, so my plan for today is to hopefully rest. I just found out not too long ago that I've got a dance practice at 5. So that'll be what I'll be doing for the rest of the day. But hopefully I'll be able to rest on Sunday and get some good. So,
and if all your plans for the next year go according to what you're planning, what's the plan for next year?
Well, plan for next year. So it's most likely, obviously, I'm definitely pursuing film. That's the plan. I know I didn't touch much up on that while we were talking, but it's one of my biggest passions. And depending on, so I've got one scholarship secured, but I might be applying for one at another uni. And if I go there, I have something in mind that I might need to talk to a few people about. So yeah.
That's very exciting. It's very exciting. Let's talk about film very quickly. Why not? We've got time. Tell us about your passion for film, because I'm going to talk about that.
My passion for film, well, obviously, as I said before, I love it and I want to make a career out of it. And I think my passion for film, it stemmed from media studies.
Can I just stop? Can I just ask you a question? Is it going to be filmmaking or being involved on the other side, in front or behind the camera? Which is your jam?
100% behind the camera. I love it. I think I just love filming things and also being able to create shots from different angles and being able to assess them and then decide which one you like the most. I do hate the editing part of it though, I'll be honest. Editing films is not fun. But yeah, definitely the filmmaking part, and that passion stemmed from doing media studies at high school. So I did media studies in year 9, but because it was mainly more sound based, didn't really get into that filmmaking aspect until about year 12 or year 11 actually, but I picked it up again in year 12. And my media studies teacher was amazing. She really helped not only ignite my passion for film, but also what I loved about her is that she saw, I guess, the beauty and I guess some of the things that I thought were ugly in my films. And I think my passion for filmmaking really stemmed from when we started making films in media studies. And it's always been something that in my spare time, sometimes I'll film things and then edit them and put music over them or, try put voiceovers. And it's something that I've always loved. So yeah, definitely the practical side of filmmaking and the way that I'm able to express my creativity and my stories through film is what's really driven my passions for it. So yeah.
That's very cool. And a key thing for me, there was a teacher ignited the passion. We spoke about before how a teacher can be so influential, and this is the teacher that's done this for you, which is amazing. And it's awesome that that's your goal, and who knows what the world is going to bring for you, but that's pretty awesome that that's a path that you're going to pursue. Because if you think about the stuff that you are passionate about, so we have your dance, your music, your te Māori, film film is such a great medium to talk about those if you choose to do that at some stage in your life. But so it's so powerful, so that's awesome, and I can't wait to see what you come up with over the next few years.
Thank you.
Very, very exciting for you. And like I said before, wherever you choose to go next year, I think they'll be very lucky to have you. So yeah, that's pretty awesome that you have that choice there.
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky as well because I'll be learning something cool from wherever I go. But yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that as well. I'm sure we can delve deeper into that there. Might have to get you back again at the end of your teaching year and see how it's all gone. But Maarie, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for being so authentic, so honest, and for just being kind. I think the world needs more people like you, and we appreciate you. So listeners out there, thank you for listening to us again. We really appreciate you listening to us. We hope you've learned something and you have smiled today or cried or you've gone through an emotional roller coaster, whatever it is. Please feel free to share, comment, and like this podcast on whatever channel you are listening to or watching this on. Until next time, bye everybody.
Ka kite.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.